Okay, there are bound to be all kinds of interesting coincidences with video game music. There's a lot of confirmed plagiarism out there, so that's not what I'm talking about. That maybe I'll talk about in a future video. I'm talking about accidents here. It happens, not often, but no matter how many variations of music we can come up with, there's always the possibility... You know what, let's start with a quick example. This is the background music in an episode of the Joss Whedon TV show Dollhouse. Now here's Samanosuke's theme in the video game Onimusha for PlayStation 2. Now there's only a similarity for a few seconds or so. Plagiarism is always a possibility, but it's probably just a coincidence. They're close enough that you can easily see the resemblance, but not enough to really accuse anyone of anything. I'm not going to get into the whole Sonic 3 and Michael Jackson controversy, which is partly true and partly conspiracy theory, and it's difficult to tell what's one and what's the other. Maybe I'll talk about this some more in the future as well. Here's another interesting example. You know the famous Zelda's Lullaby and Ocarina of Time and A Link to the Past? Check this out. This is the song Jeremy by jazz musician Roscoe Mitchell. A Link to the Past came out in 1991, 4 years before this song. Is it possible Roscoe Mitchell played this game and then plagiarized it? What might be more likely is that he overheard the music, maybe someone else was playing the game nearby, and then the melody ended up embedded in his mind and he subconsciously plagiarized it years later. Subconscious plagiarism actually does happen all the time. But this is still baseless speculation. I think Occam's razor is telling me it's all just a coincidence. I don't really know, so I can't judge. Who can really say? I have more examples, but to give you a little personal perspective, I'd like to tell you a story. This happened to me maybe around 10 years ago. I was looking around online for the Castlevania Symphony of the Night soundtrack. I owned the game, but my version's CD was scratched up, and it made the music skip sometimes. I found one website that had all the tracks as MP3s, but my connection was slow and the site was really slow, so I would often click a link and then have to wait several minutes for it to finish. So I just leave it and come back to it periodically to check its progress. While this was happening, I was watching an episode of Mystery Science Theater 3000 where they were riffing on the Russian folk movie Jack Frost. Not to be confused with this Jack Frost, or this Jack Frost. There was one scene where Jack Frost returned from a trip to find the young girl he was caring for had come under a spell that put her to sleep.
Oh great, the toilet backed up!
Soon after, Mike and the robots left and started one of their various bits they'd do between scenes. It took me a lot longer than it should have to realize that the dramatic music from the last scene was still playing even though they weren't watching the movie anymore. I paused the episode and the music was still playing. Turns out, one of the Castlevania MP3s I was downloading started autoplaying when it finished, and it just happened to play during that dramatic part, and it fit the movie so perfectly I didn't even notice. Now of course I was curious about what the episode sounded like without the accidental soundtrack I had given it, so I rewound back to that scene and I found the music was almost exactly the same. Listen to this, it's even in the same key. Now, it's crazy enough that both tracks sounded so eerily identical, but what really blows my mind is that of all the Castlevania music I was looking at, this was the one that I just happened to queue up, and it just happened to start playing on its own at the same time as the nearly identical movie music, and it synced up so well, I didn't even notice anything had happened at all. What are the odds? I figure if it was just a second or two off, I probably would have noticed how much the music was clashing. Right? I don't even know. All I know is that this whole situation defies my ability to fathom it.